I gave my wife a very comfortable life, and she still insists that I ruined her life, so I filed for divorce and my mother-in-law is backing me up. Meaning I am now 100% WFH. While this is nice, I am busy in meetings all day as my role manages teams on a global scale as I oversee projects for my industry. For the past 1.5 months, I realized my wife, as much as she says her life is stressful at home, starts at 10 a.m. I asked my mother-in-law and nanny if this was always the case after a week or so of WFH, and they both responded more or less, sometimes earlier or later. My wife wakes up, cooks, and then scrolls through her phone or shops from home, bringing me to my gripe. I am glad I can provide her with that sort of life since we both grew up lacking in means. I manage the house finances. She claims she was too busy to do so. Pay all the household bills. I pay my bills. I pay her bills. Track and perform all the upkeep of our house appliances, car, pets, and I also help pay for my mother-in-law's medical bills and car note. But apparently, my life is on an easy streak compared to hers. I can't decompress with her because she always needs to one me up. I had a bad day, but she had it worse cause I'm lucky I got to go away and work. My feet hurt from walking all day during work travel, which is nothing compared to her standing and cooking with a child clinging to her. For the past 2 or so years, I've been told I ruined her life and opportunities, but when I remind her of what she says, she denies and dodges accountability. And honestly, with the help of her mother and a nanny Monday to Friday, for one toddler while another child is at school, can you honestly tell me she's having the typical SOM experience? Neither my friends nor colleagues who are single parents can say she is. I showed my wife my post the following weekend, and she read it and all the comments. After an argument, she left our house to stay with her sister, and I've been a single parent since. It's sad to say, aside from the good nights to our kids, it's the same routine. She came back like nothing happened. She made it about her. Nothing's changed. After a little over a week of being away, I guess she cooled off. So she just decided that it would be fine if she walked in the door with her bags as if she'd just come back from Target. She came into my office while I was working and angrily stared at me while I sat on a conference call meeting with my team. I couldn't just jump off as this was a busy quarter for us. That didn't sit well with her because once I removed my headset and closed my laptop, she started yelling at me about how much I didn't care about her and her well-being. At that moment, I couldn't do anything more than look at her and shake my head. My mother-in-law came in after hearing my wife yelling and pulled her away, telling her not to bother me while our nanny kept our youngest away from it all on the other side of the house. That night, after the kids were put to bed, I sat in my office by myself with a drink, as I had been doing for the past few nights, and my wife came in. We talked, we argued, we cried, we drank. One thing led to another, and we were in bed. I wish I could say that was our making up, but the next sobering morning, as we lay there, she went on about how hard it was for her the time she was gone. It was about her struggles staying at her family house in her old room with her dad and sister's family. How lucky I am to stay here and do this and that and buy this or do that and not stress as much as they did. How easy my and everyone else's in our family lives are compared to hers even though we had similar upbringings. My mind and heart broke that morning. I've been spiraling down since then, and this last week, I made another attempt to reconcile and talk things out, but I was met with a shouting match while trying to express my current stress and anxieties with life and work in general. Wife, well, do you know how hard this is all for me? You're supposed to help me be happy. Me. So when it comes to my happiness, stress, needs, and overall well-being, FK me get over it, right? Wife, we all have our own problems. You need to figure it out and get over them. I don't know who I am at home with, but that wasn't the woman I married and vowed to spend my life with and raise our kids. Since that conversation, I've been noticeably distant from her. After a hard push from our family via an intervention, my wife and I finally attempted to go to marriage counseling. I'm sure many of you can guess how well that went. Blame, tears, regrets, gaslighting, with a side of I am the reason for her life being ruined and horrible. Again, this time in front of a licensed therapist instead of Reddit or mom groups. In the end, everything the therapist suggested and noted went over her head and ignored as it was against the grain of her status quo. One thing I guess is worth saying is that the therapist asked if she could recall when she last truly felt happy. Her response was about 12 or so years ago. Please note that 12 years ago, she was still in her 20s, childless, living with her ex. The following weekend was Father's Day. This year, as expected, it was not as big of a celebration as it is for many dads. Our family celebrated with a barbecue and simple family time, and my wife treated it like any other day. Sleep in, get up, cook, phone, shop, attempt to play with kids, phone. During the family barbecue, my wife said she felt ill, so she sat around most of the day while the rest of the family enjoyed the experience. I was conversing with my brother-in-law about our kids' school Father's Day activities. I assume my wife overheard when I mentioned that it was sad to see some kids sit alone without their fathers during the breakfast with dad event I attended. She laughed loud enough for the whole room to hear. It's not like you do anything anyway. I could have gone instead. At that moment, I was red and at a loss for words, sitting there processing what she had said in my head. The dining room went dead silent. My mother-in-law broke the awkwardness and in response, said, well, maybe if you feel that way, one of you should divorce the other. My wife looked at my mother-in-law, confused that she would respond with that, and laughed mockingly in my direction and, with her hand pointing at me, said, as if another woman would want a man like him, just look at you. While the room sat silent, I was angry, heartbroken, confused, and embarrassed all at the same time. In manly man fashion, I just nodded my head in silence, stood up, picked up my keys, got in my truck, and drove off to get a drink while trying to ignore the cries of the rest of the family and our kids telling me to stay. I don't know what was said or done while I was out of the house the rest of Sunday because I couldn't bring myself to check our house cameras. But when I returned early Monday morning, the house had a completely different feel. As usual, I woke up around 6 and got the house and our oldest ready for school drop-off. Checked emails. I checked messages, but nothing out of the ordinary. As I dressed, my wife lay in our bed, snoring lightly. All I could do was look at her and think of what we had. And now lost. I've decided. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I texted my lawyer that morning to move forward with serving her. Fast forward to last week. She was served at our home. She had, I guess, what you could call a mini meltdown and came into my office screaming how could I do this to her. Her mother intervened and met with me, supposedly turning her whole family against her. But I digress. I probably would have felt bad if it wasn't immediately followed by the rest of her week, acting as if she's been this active and attentive wife and mother the past few years. Sure, people can say she's attempting, but she's made many attempts, and historically, we have fallen back to where we've been. For those curious, I aim for our kids' full or at least majority custody. My mother-in-law has given me the courage and strength that helps supplement my own mother's support throughout this. She is what I hope the kind of mother/wife my wife would have been to our kids and me. Out of respect for my mother-in-law, as well as per my own mother's shared wishes, I will continue to help oversee and contribute financial help if needed during her treatments. All in all, I'm prepared to go to war if needed, but I just want a clean no fuss divorce. My wife has no alimony coming.